Every maid who worked in the Hale mansion walked out in less than a week. But when Grace arrived, she didn't just survive. She uncovered the pain behind the cruelty and did something no one thought possible. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm brewing inside the magnificent Rosewood mansion. A place that looked like it had been pulled straight from the pages of a luxury magazine. White marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and paintings worth more than some people's homes. But behind all that beauty, there was chaos. Since the day millionaire businessman Richard Hale remarried, not a single maid had lasted more than a week. The reason, his new wife Vanessa. She was breathtakingly beautiful, always dressed like she was stepping onto a runway, but her words could cut deeper than any knife. The moment she stepped into the room, the staff tensed up. They knew one wrong move, one tiny mistake, and she would unleash her fury. It wasn't just the shouting or the endless demands. It was the way she made people feel small, invisible. She treated the maids like they were beneath her, like their only purpose was to serve her whims without question. The previous maid, a sweet young woman named Clara, had lasted exactly 4 days before leaving in tears. And Richard, he seemed blind in public. Vanessa clung to his arm like the perfect wife, but in private her temper ran wild. Richard was always too busy with meetings and travel to notice the damage she left behind. The revolving door of maids had become so normal that the agency had stopped sending their best workers, fearing another resignation in less than a week. That Monday morning, a new maid arrived. Her name was Grace. She was a black woman in her early 30s with warm brown eyes and a quiet confidence that came from surviving life's hardships. She didn't wear expensive clothes, just a simple uniform, but she carried herself with dignity. Grace had been through worse than an arrogant employer. She had faced poverty, discrimination, and loss. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here for a paycheck to support her daughter Maya, who was waiting at home. The head butler gave Grace a warning as they walked toward the grand living room. No one lasts here. If you want my advice, don't take her words to heart. Grace simply smiled. I've worked for difficult people before. I'll manage. She didn't yet know just how much her patience would be tested. The first day seemed almost peaceful until Vanessa called her into the dining room. The table was set for lunch, silverware perfectly aligned, napkins folded, but Vanessa's eyes narrowed at a tiny detail, a water glass not aligned exactly with the plate. What is this? Vanessa's voice was low but dangerous. Grace glanced at the glass, adjusted it slightly. It's fixed now, ma'am. Vanessa stepped closer, her perfume heavy in the air. Do you think I'm paying you to fix mistakes after I see them? I want perfection before I walk in. Is that clear? Yes, Mom. Grace replied calmly, refusing to look away. Most maids would have apologized profusely, maybe even cried under such humiliation. But Grace's steady gaze unsettled Vanessa. This one wasn't going to break easily. By the end of the week, Vanessa had tried every trick, sending Grace back and forth for trivial things, criticizing her work, even making personal remarks about her appearance. But Grace stayed. She moved through the mansion like quiet strength personified, doing her job without complaint. And though she didn't know it yet, her presence was starting to chip away at the cold, polished walls Vanessa had built around herself. It was on Grace's 10th day, longer than anyone had lasted in months, that the first real test came. A storm had knocked out power in half the city, but the Rosewood Mansion's generators kept the lights blazing. Vanessa had planned an intimate dinner for Richard's business associates. But just hours before the guests were to arrive, the chef fell ill. Panic spread through the staff. Without the chef, the dinner would be a disaster. Vanessa stormed into the kitchen, heels clicking like gunfire. What do you mean he can't cook? This dinner is important. The butler stammered an apology, suggesting they order food from a high-end restaurant, but Vanessa refused. It has to be perfect. It has to be homemade. She looked around the room like a queen surveying unworthy subjects until her eyes landed on Grace. Can you cook? Grace hesitated. I can, ma'am, but I'll need help and the right ingredients. You'll have everything you need. Vanessa snapped, then turned on her heel and left, muttering about the incompetence of everyone in the house. For the next 2 hours, Grace worked like a whirlwind, preparing a full 3-course meal with the help of 2 nervous junior staff members. The kitchen filled with the aroma of roasted chicken, fresh herbs, and baked bread. Grace didn't just cook, she led. She encouraged the others, made them laugh, even under pressure. When the dinner was finally served, the guests were impressed. Richard praised the meal openly, smiling warmly at Grace in a way that made Vanessa's lips tighten. But for the first time, Vanessa didn't say a word against her. Later that night, when the guests had left and the mansion was quiet, Vanessa passed by the kitchen and saw Grace cleaning up. She stopped, leaning against the doorframe. "You surprised me tonight," she said, her tone softer than usual. Grace looked up, wiping her hands. "I wasn't trying to surprise anyone, just doing my job." Vanessa studied her for a long moment, as if trying to figure her out. Then she simply nodded and walked away. It was the smallest crack in the ice, but it was there. Grace had no idea that behind Vanessa's flawless exterior was a past filled with pain, betrayal, and loneliness. And slowly, without realizing it, she was about to become the only person who could reach the heart of the woman everyone else feared. 3 weeks later, the house was in chaos again, but this time not because of Vanessa's temper. It was early morning when Richard left for an urgent business trip. By noon, Vanessa received a phone call that shattered her world. Her younger brother, Daniel, whom she hadn't spoken to in years, had been in a serious car accident. He was in critical condition. Grace found Vanessa sitting in the living room, her perfect posture gone, her hands trembling as she tried to process the news. I can't do this," Vanessa whispered, her voice barely audible. "I can't see him. Not after what happened." Grace didn't know the full story, but she knew pain when she saw it. She knelt beside Vanessa. "Sometimes we don't get second chances. If you don't go now, you may never get to say what you need to." For the first time, Vanessa's eyes welled with tears. "He betrayed me and I hated him for it. But now," she broke down, sobbing into her hands. Grace didn't try to give more advice. She simply sat with her, a silent presence of comfort. After a few minutes, she said gently, "I'll go with you." At the hospital, the sterile smell and the sound of machines filled the air. Vanessa froze in the doorway of her brother's room. Daniel looked pale, fragile. Slowly, she walked to his bedside, her fingers brushing his hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I should have called. I should have been there." Daniel's eyes fluttered open, and in a weak voice, he said, "You're here now. That's what matters." The two siblings held hands, years of bitterness melting away in that quiet hospital room. Grace stood in the corner, watching the scene unfold. She knew this moment was bigger than her job. It was about healing wounds that money could never touch. When they returned to the mansion later that night, Vanessa turned to Grace at the front door. Her eyes, still red from crying, held something Grace had never seen before. "Gratitude. You're the only one who didn't run away from me," Vanessa said softly. "The only one who saw me as human." Grace smiled. "Sometimes all we need is someone to stay." From that day forward, Vanessa's behavior toward the staff changed. She was still demanding, but the cruelty was gone. She began to say please and thank you, and the mansion slowly became a warmer place. Grace had done the impossible, not by arguing, not by fighting, but by standing firm with kindness and patience until even the coldest heart began to thaw. In a world where it's easier to walk away, Grace chose to stay. She didn't just keep her job, she changed a life. And sometimes that's the greatest victory of all,